Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Wallsend history story. Well, it's not really a history story this week, it's another little wander through Church Bank Cemetery. So I thought I would just do a little walk around some of the other areas that I didn't cover in the previous video. There's not really a massive amount of well-known or famous people down this end, but I just thought for, anybody who doesn't live locally or anybody who's just interested in the history of old cemeteries, there are still quite a lot of fascinating graves in here. But naturally, I don't tend to sort of take photos or get close to any graves that are just sort of like normal people like myself, etc. Because obviously, that a lot of people don't really like to see family graves and things like that online and whatever. Yeah, I know I'm just talking an absolute load of rubbish, which is nothing unusual when I'm outside and completely unscripted and ad-libbing as I go along. But this is the bottom half of Church Bank Cemetery, which basically leads up to where the chapels are, which you'll be able to see in a moment because I'm going to turn and go up this lovely flight of stairs. So there are several war graves in here, as you can see, and some of them were recently put in for their 1800 year anniversary. So there's actually quite a lot more now than there was previously. Coming up towards the chapels is where you actually find quite a few of the graves of various different vicars from Wallsend, which would have been most likely from St. Peter's. So basically over here, if I remember rightly, but I think I could be completely in the wrong place, but I do believe that round here somewhere is the grave of Richardson, who wrote the history of the parish of Wallsend. Yes, it's over here. So I know that this was one that I don't think I included in the last video, so I just thought that I would put this one in as well. So that would be this one here. So this is the grave of William Richardson, who, like I say, is the author of the book The History of the Parish of Wallsend, who lived in Rose Hill in Field House, if I've got that right, which is good because when I'm doing things from memory, I do tend to completely forget everything. So we also have over here one of the chapels. They're both currently for sale at the moment, and yes, they're listed buildings, and I think I would probably imagine that it's quite difficult to find another purpose for one of these listed buildings, because obviously they are quite small inside and I don't know what they could actually be used for. But as I said before, this of course is an area where there are several graves for various different vicars of Wallsend, where this one you can see is the Reverend Stewart, who was the minister of the Wallsend Presbyterian Church. Now I don't know if you can read that because it's a little bit in the shade, so it probably doesn't show up very well at all, but that's the grave there. And then obviously you come up these steps here and you're going to get much closer to the chapels. Now I'm not used to using this camera for videos, so I don't know how well it's going to work, but hopefully it'll not be too bad. So we're going to go around the side of one of these chapels, and as you can see, they're all, well, they are in quite bad condition. There's been a lot of years of them not being in use, and obviously the plastic's being put on to stop the vandalism, because obviously people do seem to enjoy breaking windows. And this one, you can see there is a lovely fence with a nice padlock on. The door is open internally, and they are now completely, I don't think that's going to focus, they are now completely cleared out inside. There's nothing inside them anymore. They did used to have still pews and things inside them, but there's nothing inside them now. They're completely empty, apart from pigeons, as there are rather a lot of pigeons. And this also is the chapel that was struck by lightning a few years ago. So if I go down this way so that I can get a better shot of the top, you'll be able to see how, from looking at the top, the spire on that one, if you can see it for the sun, because it's a very bright sunny day today, which is unusual considering the amount of rain we've had recently. But you can see that the spire on that one is all one colour, and then when you turn to look at that one, you can see that's lovely, a nice siren. I always seem to get a siren when I'm filming outside near churchyards. You can see that one is a totally different colour on the top because it was struck by lightning and it collapsed into the churchyard, but it was restored. But that makes it totally different, but I don't actually know the year, I can't remember. So the other chapel is pretty much the same. I mean, obviously I believe one was Catholic, one was Protestant, and basically this is exactly the same. It's also up for sale, and again, as I said, it's completely locked up, so you can't get inside, and internally it has been cleared. Now I don't know if that'll focus into there, but yes, that is just rather a large collection of what can only be described as a pigeon dew, and I can assure you that that smells absolutely awful. So whoever buys that gets a lovely smell of pigeon poo. Now down there is the old church house, which was obviously the house that the person who used to look after the cemetery in the past would live in. It's an absolutely fabulous little house. Again, that is also up for sale at the moment. Again, I think that's listed as well. I'm not entirely certain on that one, but it is a fabulous little house. There's actually quite a lot of scope to do work with that, but it is also in quite a bad state of deterioration, so it does need quite a bit of work done to it. But it is a lovely house, and actually, if I had the money, I would actually love to live here because it's a really nice, peaceful, quiet place. And I'm going to wander over towards the house because I'm going to show you what comes with the house, because obviously it's not just the house. There is obviously a little bit more. I'm just walking backwards a moment because I'm just going to dump my little bag that I've been carrying around so that I don't have to carry that. So going back down towards the house, like I say, there's a lot of land that comes with it. You don't just get the house. You would be able to obviously have off-road parking. I feel like I'm doing a bit of an estate agent speak here, as if I'm promoting the sale, but only if somebody's going to buy it for me, because I do like it. I'd love to live here. Unfortunately, as you can see, it's been a victim of vandalism as well, because obviously the windows have had to be boarded up to stop people trying to break in. But when you come round here towards the back of the house, you have got what was the remains of the sheds that were used, which were actually part of the cemetery. They were used for the cemetery staff, but you can't, I don't think you can see them because I think the sunlight is shining quite badly, but you can see there, unfortunately, the amount of vandalism. The doors are being broken open, etc., if you can see that, which I hope that you can. And then when you come round here, what you can't see anymore, up there, which is just now an absolute overgrown mass of weeds, there is actually an outside toilet, but you can't see that anymore. And down here is actually the garden that belongs to the house. So if you actually come down through this, there is a little footpath which kind of just looks like, you know, and you've got an area down here where there was a garden area, and obviously there was a greenhouse area and things like that. But I think people are using this as like a sort of camping place, because it kind of looks like clothes and what looks like a resemblance of a remains of a fire. So I'm not going to go right down there because I don't know what's down there, and I am a little bit of a God only knows, there could be a body down there. Don't want to find a body. I doubt that. I think that's probably just me being rather stupid. And then obviously this part is all to do with the house as well. So like I say, you do get a lot for buying the house, and it is a lovely house. It needs a lot of work. It needs a new roof, the chimney stack needs all sorting out, and obviously all of this back end needs sorting out, but it is lovely. So if anybody wants to buy it for us, I'm, you know, quite happy with that. And then coming back round here, obviously, you're going to see the main entrance to the cemetery, which is down there coming in off Church Bank. It's an incredibly steep bank, and I can imagine that that must have been quite difficult to have gotten into years ago when the cemetery first opened, because obviously back then you wouldn't have been coming in cars in the same way, so you would have been getting, as always said it, horse and cart is the way I've always described it. Nice couple of motorbikes, but it would have been obviously the horse and the carriage, the hearse would have been a carriage on the back of the horses, and it would have been quite hard to have got that up there, I would think, because it is quite a steep bank. So it has had a little bit of maintenance work done to it recently, because I noticed a lot of the trees and things have been cut down, and that's obviously where the old bell, the sexton bell, used to be, but it isn't there anymore. It's just a big empty space. So I do remember a while ago discussing the idea of trying to get that replaced. It would still be nice to do that. And then coming up here, obviously you're coming up to the higher part of the cemetery, which is really close to, coming very close to St. Peter's Church. And obviously the cemetery is like all cemeteries, it's set into sections, consecrated, Roman Catholic, etc. And I do have family buried in this section in front of you, and I do have family buried in that section over there as well. I don't have any other family in here, that's all I have. Most of my family are all buried in Holy Cross or in, well, Kent basically. But other than that, there's a lot of people who I know who do have family buried here. It is a beautiful, peaceful churchyard, and I'm going to walk round the top just to finish the video off and come back down the other side, because the last time I was here I did go round to the grave of Robert Richardson Dees, and it was quite bad condition at the time. But then sometime just recently I did come through here and I noticed that somebody had done quite a bit of work on the grave, and it was looking really nice. So I'm just going to walk round towards where that is to have a look and see if it still looks as good today. So this comes up to the wall of St. Peter's Care Home, which you can see in front of you there. So when you come round, turning to your left here, it is just one path that goes all the way around from this side, all the way around and down the other side. So when you're coming along here, obviously I covered this in the other video when I went round Church Bank Cemetery a while ago, and obviously when you're coming along here you come past the grave of Joseph Mullen, who was the great sculptor of headstones and memorials in Wallsend. Unfortunately, it is, well, really rather overgrown, because that's it there. But naturally, like a lot of graves in cemeteries as old as this one, there are no longer any family to take care of them, so they do end up becoming overgrown and uncared for. So it would be fabulous to one day set up a sort of Friends of Church Bank Cemetery to come in and clean up the graves and get rid of the weeds and things like that, and, you know, put some of the headstones back together and what have you. It would be nice. It's something that I've always fancied doing. So I'm coming down and I can actually see excuse me, I can actually see the grave of Robert Richardson Dees, and it is very different to the last time I was here. Now, these are actually plants, they're not weeds, they were actually planted, and I think they have grown rather a lot since I last looked. So this is, as I say, the last resting place of Robert Richardson Dees, who was one time Mayor of Wallsend and also owned Wallsend Hall, and as I say, and also donated the land for Wallsend Park. So they're plants, they're not weeds. I think they've grown maybe a little bit more than those who planted them were expecting them to, but it does actually look a little better than it did the first time. So I'm just going to walk right down, back down this way and back down towards the chapels, and then I think that will be enough. So obviously coming past the grave of William Marlowe O'Brady Jones there, which is one that I've covered in a previous story, the vicar of Wallsend St Luke's Church, and his daughter Kathleen Alice O'Brady Jones, who was shot at the Co-op Hall on Carville Road accidentally by, I believe it was John Dwyer, something like that. And it was an accidental death, and she's also buried there, and her headstone is, her name is actually written on that bit of headstone that you can see lying down there. And no, I'm not going to lift that up on my own because it's really rather heavy. And when you come down towards here, you actually do come down to quite a few well-known people of Wallsend that I will cover in some other stories, because obviously I do need the information about them, and because there's quite a few of them, I couldn't possibly sort of cover them all and tell you the story about them all off the top of my head. But I know this one for Watson is one that I do have quite a bit of information for, and I also believe that there is another one round here as well that has quite a bit of information. And there's also the doctors, the Aitchison doctors and things like that. So I will hopefully do some little videos about them later on. So anyway, I'm going to call it a day on this one. I hope it hasn't been too boring. I hope it's been a nice little wander and listening to me talking an absolute load of rubbish. But I do hope that you have enjoyed it, and thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all again very soon.